Call to Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, June 3, 2019, at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now 6 p.m. Welcome to those that are listening later and those that are present right now. Would you join us for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do you hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Let's have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Presentations. We have Police Detective Justin Langley, 5 years of service. Justin, I don't think I'd met you before. Welcome.
So, Justin Langley, he formerly worked in Kettle Hills Police Department, and when I took over as chief, one of the things that I wanted to do, as y'all know, was the fight against the narcotic use. It's been beginning to increase, so I took one of the detective spots and I identified that I needed a narcotics officer to be assigned to the drug task force. And Mr. Langley came over from Kettle Hills, just an excellent, hard-working young man. And ever since he's come over, he's done nothing but excel. Anytime I give him an issue or a street or a location that we have problems with narcotic use, he's up at all times of the night doing all kinds of things. And works very well with the other departments. The sheriff constantly compliments him on his hard work. He reports to me directly. He does not go through the chain because we like to keep the information tight. Does not leak out in the public of what we know, because he knows a lot of things that a lot of people don't know, including us in this room here. So, and that's the way we like to keep it. Justin was born in Elizabeth City, correct? He has 12 total years of law enforcement. He was born in Elizabeth City, but his mother, she's in the audience. Her name's Peggy, and her comes from Corbell, which lived on Corinda Lane. They have a deep history here in the village of Kitty Hawk. And Justin has a sense of pride about serving the town of Kitty Hawk, because his folks are from here. And his grandparents lived here and have a long history. And it's been a quick 5 years, but a busy 5 years for him, because as you know, the fight on, they don't call it the war. It's not a war against drugs, because wars have endings. Most wars do. So we call it, the fight against narcotics. And Justin is extremely busy and is a true asset, to the town of Kitty Hawk, and making sure all the citizens are safe, and plus in the county, and trying to eradicate it. His goal is just, he also reaches out to people that are having issues and tries to find them help. Maybe it might be rehab, therapy, counseling. So it's not just about putting someone in jail. It's also trying to assist them in finding the right help. And he's very, very good at that. Thank you, Justin.
Good. Justin, thank you for what you do. We appreciate it. We hope, even though we're not going to be told, that you haven't found too many pot houses. We have had them here, so hopefully we've got that eradicated too. Thank you.
Happy late birthday too, Justin.
All right, the next thing is Outer Bank Sporting Events. Jenny Ash.
Is this working? All right. Thank you for having me, Mayor Perry and members of the council. It's always nice to come and give you a quick update, and it looks like you have a relatively heavy agenda, so I'll keep it short and sweet. And
Thank you.
most things are relatively business as usual, so we'll give you a vibe of what's going on with us, and we'll answer any questions and all that stuff. So this is looking at 2018. I appreciate you fitting me in too on this evening, because I usually get started earlier in the spring with my reports. So thank you for having me. So looking at 2018, just as a reminder, in 2006 is when the first marathon was here, which starts right up here in Kitty Hawk and always has. And then a few years later in 2010 was when OBSE was officially created. So we've got our four-part mission is to organize and promote sporting events and competition, healthy living, which is, as I was listening to the last gentleman talk about Detective Langley, these things are preventative measures for some of the other things that could maybe help out in that respect. We also provide financial resources and needed relief and support for public education. We contribute to the Outer Banks Relief Foundation and the Dare Education Foundation with our net proceeds. And then contribute to the overall economy of the Outer Banks. So just a quick overview of our 2018 events. We have 5 events throughout the year. I was just speaking about our cancellation with Hurricane Florence of our triathlon last September, so we're gearing up. We had a lot of people defer over. We let them do that free of charge, so we're bringing the folks back that were already registered and had trained and paid and all that stuff, and the industry standard is typically maybe a discount or, not really bringing them back for a complimentary entry. So we'll have a big group this year, but our events, we counted who was signed up thus far at the cancellation point, and then we did lose our one event while we were changing it up, so Storm the Beach was changed up, and we did not have that event in 2018. So our total participants were a little less than the typical with those occurrences, but we had 6,100 folks come to do our races, and then their guests, which was 2.8, I think, on average. That'll be on another slide. So the participants and their guests, we brought 18,000 plus folks to the Outer Banks. And then that shows our breakdown. Typically, it's a little more female heavy with our races, 56 and 44% for our male-female breakdown. Our average age of our runners or our participants is 35 to 45. And then we've got 89% were visitors from out of town, and 19% of those were first time to the Outer Banks. So that's good. We try to measure that and keep them coming back. We have Dare County school groups and other nonprofits serve at our aid stations, local vendors set up at our Athlete Expo where all the participants have to come to get their items, and then area businesses support us and gain exposure with sponsorship, so we have a lot of community partnerships. Here are the 2 foundations that I mentioned get our net proceeds, and since the inception of OBSE in 2010, we've generated over $1 million in local funding for each charity. So that's sort of a cumulative number there with our donations to them as we see people come back year over year, as well as recruiting new folks. So this is, this is a snapshot of just Kitty Hawk's numbers in terms of registration and the form questions we ask our folks before they arrive. During the registration process, we have them indicate where they'll be staying, how many folks they think they're going to bring with them, and how many days they will intend to stay on the Outer Banks. And then again, where, what town, and sort of narrow it down. So it's, self-reporting basically when they are assuming their details in travel, but 1,084 or 1,084 participants stayed in Kitty Hawk last year of our guests for our races. And they indicated that they were bringing 2.6 folks with them on average. And so that totals 2,818. So adding back the participants and the guests together, so 3,900 visitors came and stayed in Kitty Hawk is what we determined. And we determined a $75 per diem for food and novelties and things that they spend per day. And then that 2.6 is the average days that they stayed here as well. So the per diem basically is $760,000 over the year, and then $845,000 plus in accommodations. So we have a great sponsorship relationship with Hilton in Kitty Hawk and other hotels and Southern Shores Realty and things like that. So we really promote them on our website and invite them to have a specific place to stay and make planning easy when we have things on our website for our participants that are on their way. So in 2019, looking ahead, we've got enhanced blogs and things like that on our sponsorship side. And that really narrows it down for people and makes planning easy, so people come back, and it's not feeling so remote or expensive to come to the Outer Banks to visit. So that's been helping. And then we are developing a VIP add-on package, because I always like to think of that secondary audience that comes, maybe the mother or the father or one person in the family is a runner, but the other 2.6 or that average number, or they might want to bring their parents and not want to detract from the running experience or worry about what they're going to be doing during the race. So looking at that secondary audience, and how can we get folks here that aren't necessarily here for the athletic event. So developing a package that would help those folks not only enhance the experience, but invite them to do or have the experience without necessarily having to do the run. And then we're always exploring additional event ideas, maybe not even sports related. So we've been having some discussions with maybe branching out a little bit. I mentioned that the Storm the Beach, we sort of downsized and did away with that one. And we just replaced it same time of year, basically a little earlier, and still oceanfront. So that gives folks a chance to do something right on the beach, where our runs are mostly along the sound and everything. So we did our inaugural version this year at Jeanette's Pier. A lot of folks were already in town that signed up for that, so it was a lot of last-minute registrations, and a lot of those folks were here in Kitty Hawk and made the trip down, so that's cool. Something for them to do, and a good event to post to folks that are already in town as the kickoff to summer. And again, that secondary audience, it was a little less competitive, and it was more social and inclusive. We had a band right on the beach, and it was really a little bit different than what we usually do, and it was a great response. So coming up for our fall events, like I said, I usually get started on these presentations a little earlier, and so we've had the Flying Pirate in April, and then we've also had the new inaugural Band in the Sand, as well as our little March Leprechaun race, which is small but fun. Mostly locals do that one. So our two sort of more flagship, more prominent events, I guess I should say, are coming up, and that's in September and November. So I've got the summer to plan and invite people to stay. Hopefully, Kitty Hawk will get a great response from those, which they usually do. And we look forward to partnering with you, and just a huge thank you to all the officers that are out there in the morning blocking the streets. A lot of it is for the Flying Pirate as well as the November race. It's Woods Road, Kitty Hawk Road. That's pretty pivotal in the safe feeling. When folks have a safe feeling, that's one of our main questions in our follow-up data is, did you feel safe, and that the course was controlled and all those things, because people put a lot into it, and that makes it just a great experience for them. So can't thank you enough for sharing your roads and your support and your staff and everything like that to make our events happen. And hopefully you feel like it's a relatively light footprint. It's funny, I usually go from the finish lines and then come back home, because I live up this way, and there's like no evidence of the race that took over 6 months of my life preparing for it. So hopefully you see the same, and always feel free to reach out to me if there's something that you'd like to see changed. But the town's always fantastic about meeting ahead of time and making plans and making it go smoothly. So thank you again, and I'll certainly answer any questions for you, and looking forward to a continued partnership.
Anybody? I
Thank you,
have
Jenny.
one.
Sure.
You're going to swim in November.
The September is the swim, bike, run event.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
sometimes
thought I saw November up there.
November, let's go back. November is the Outer Banks Marathon weekend, so that is what starts up here at Dominion.
Okay, so that's not swimming in
At
November.
the September
Correct.
one.
Triathlon.
Well, the triathlon gets so hot, sometimes people probably prefer to brave the colder swim and have a cooler run. So
Yeah.
it's always iffy at that
Okay.
time of year,
When we were growing up around here, you wouldn't be swimming in November. But
No, probably a little late for that. But
Thank
and
you
I also
very
have a picture, a framed artwork. Every year we have a local artist, and you probably have them around the building. So I have one more for you for our art for 2018. Gretchen Hargis painted this, and it is a watercolor of a sort of a different perspective of our runners coming down the sound with the grasses in the back, and it says all roads lead to the beach. So I would like to present this as a thank you, and again, really appreciate everything you guys have done for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody got anything else before we move on? No, sir. All right. Next, we have public comment. Lynn?
Yes, sir. John Canning.
I'm John Canning. I live with my wife in Tarkle Ridge Road, Tarkle Ridge Drive. We've been here 14 years, and the lot next to me I've cut probably more than 60 times. And it continues to grow. And I really didn't get upset with this until I mentioned it to the Kitty Hawk Landing. And Kitty Hawk Landing, one of the officers went over and said to the gentleman that owns the lot, who lives down the street from us, that he should start cutting his lawn. And he told the man that if I catch you on my lot, I'm going to have you arrested for trespassing. And this is the type of person that he is, okay? I've said to my wife, I'm not cutting the lot anymore. Well, since I said that, I've cut it twice. Now, today, Mr. Midget was driving by when I stopped and chatted with him, and he can attest to it that we need a hay baler there to pick up the grass that I cut. It's a fire hazard. Prior to cutting this, had someone gone by and flipped a cigarette into there, we would have had a fire. And there's a new house to the south of me, and we're to the north of it. So I had talked to Mr. Alexander last year, and he had said to me, well, we don't enforce that anymore, it's too ambiguous. I offered to give him a yardstick so that he could measure the grass if he wanted to, but he didn't want to go that. I'd like something to be done with this if we could. All right, it's definitely a problem. The man that owns the lot stopped me from putting a dock on the other side of my, stopped me from getting a permit from Camera to put a dock up there so my grandkids could put their kayaks in, saying that it devalued his property. Well, there isn't too much that devalues your property more than a stand of weeds next to it. So I'd like to know what we could do about this, if anything. I've been to Kitty Hawk Landing about it, nothing they can do.
Okay. Mr. Alexander can't enforce something he doesn't have an ordinance for. There was an ordinance in the past that was repealed for a couple of reasons. One, the definition that was used for cutting grass or forcing somebody to cut grass was a noxious weed, and there was a certain height that it had to be at. If you look at the definition of a noxious weed in the dictionary, because I looked it up, I was curious to know what they were talking about. A noxious weed is more or less in the eye of the beholder. So the last thing anybody wants is a bureaucrat out there walking your land telling you you've got noxious weeds to cut. For that reason, and the fact that any law that is passed to force people, homeowners, to cut their grass also includes all of the town, everybody in the town, every lot in the town. That became another issue out on the beach where we don't want to cut what weeds we have on the sand because they retain the sand. So it became kind of an impossibility to have a law in the first place. It's an infringement on property owners, and it's not something unless any member of this council objects to me saying it's not a place. This council's not willing to go onto private property and start telling people to cut their grass. Anybody object to that statement?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. So you'll have to deal with your homeowner's situation. You'll have to deal with your property owner next door in whatever fashion you can. But I do not see this council making a law to go there. It's been there. It didn't work. It caused problems. And it's an intrusion on private property. That's not what we're here for. We don't do that. You need to get along with your neighbor however best you can. Now, I think Casey might be able to tell you that if it's a problem of a safety nature or something, perhaps a civil suit of some sort might be in order. Casey, can you help that?
No, I absolutely agree. These things can rise to the level of warranting a cause of action against your neighbor. I'm interested on the HOA's opinion. I mean, I would would question as to why they feel as though they can't take any action. I mean, you know, covenants, of course, are specific to your subdivision. And many times, and part of what I do in my private practice is drafting and amending covenants all the time. So I'd be surprised if there wasn't something in there regarding the HOA defined nuisance or something of that nature, as these covenants are really designed to protect your property value. So I agree with you in regards to the weeds and things of that nature, but I'm shocked that's why these private documents come into play, as the mayor's been saying, as opposed to the town getting involved. So I would look deeper and perhaps even hire an attorney to look into your covenants to see if maybe a letter can be written to the HOA to force some kind of action. Because if that's going to be the more simple route, I mean, that would save you from having to file a lawsuit on your own behalf in the event that you could get your HOA to do something. So I would absolutely look into the covenant issue, because I feel as though I know it's been actionable in other subdivisions. I'll say it that way without going into a whole lot of detail, but there's typically a way to force some kind of action.
All right, well, let's look at it from another perspective, and Mr. Midget, I think, can back me on this. If someone driving down the street flipped a cigarette butt, the whole lot starts on fire. And it's not too far from the house south of me. So it is a fire problem. I cut it 2 weeks ago, and then I cut it again Saturday, and there is a lot of grass laying there in rows. If you took a hay baler, you could make several bales of hay out of it. So it does become a safety problem.
Which goes back to why I think you would have a really strong cause of action and could force your HOA to do something about that. I'm more miffed at why they're saying that we can't do anything. I mean, I'm not getting into the trespassing argument here. It is private property. A board member can't just walk on there without permission or for no good reason. However, comes up often in bulkheads if they become safety issues, if they become a material hazard to surrounding properties. The HOA can go in, they can take action, they can repair that bulkhead. They can fix it, do what they need to do, file a lien against the owner for the cost of doing so, which again is exactly what you're talking about when it comes to the safety hazard issue. So I'd be shocked again if there wasn't something your HOA could do about this.
All right, I'll deal in that aspect with them and see what they have to say about it.
Great idea.
Okay.
I really do believe so.
Thank you for your time.
One more thing, the fact that you were denied a permit to put a dock or something, I take it the CAMA denied that based on
You wouldn't sign the paper for CAMA to permit the permit.
It doesn't matter. If you make your case, and CAMA can override a neighbor if the neighbor's just being obstinate. I understand how those things work. You're not dead on that. If you follow through, go through the CAMA process. He doesn't even have to sign the paper or even acknowledge the paper for you to do that. If he doesn't acknowledge the paper, then CAMA can act on the thing based on other parameters, okay? So you're not done on that either. You just got to have a different approach. We're not the cause for you.
The problem with this is my grandson's now 18 years old, has a captain's license, and he runs a charter boat out of Hatteras. He has no interest in kayaking in my backyard.
Right about that. All right. Lynn, anybody else?
No, sir.
Anyone else? Any more public comment? All right, let the record show no one came forward. Next is consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, nothing removed. Next is planning. We have a site plan amendment, 5112 North Curriton Highway, urgent care. Rob?
All right, as mentioned, this is a site plan amendment application for the urgent care. If you remember the original approval, they initially had proposed a dumpster on site after some objection from an adjacent property owner. And the original location of the dumpster was out here to the rear, which is right across the driveway from the property owner. The engineer kind of worked with them and went with roll carts instead to try to be less intrusive on the neighbors. The roll carts have ended up not really working out so well for them. They're filling them up on a weekly basis, even in the off months. The lids are flapping off and there's trash blowing all across the neighboring properties. So they've requested to put a dumpster pad and dumpster in place instead. You can see on the attached plans, yellow rectangles where they're proposing to put it. So it's further away from any of the adjacent property owners, any of the residences. It's approximately 225 feet away from the nearest residence, and it's about 315 feet away from the front porch of the property owner who objected to the dumpster originally. If approved, section 34-3E requires that it will be on a concrete pad and screened on 3 sides, so it'll also be shielded from view from the adjacent residences. It would be picked up, emptied 3 times per week by Dare County Sanitation, approximately between 4:30 and 5 in the morning. I will note that the actual location for it is on Lot 5, which is just to the north of the urgent care. The additional concrete pad there increases the lot coverage on that site to about 58.5%, which is still less than the 60% maximum. I did talk to the Vidant representatives about if this gets approved, would it be possible to have all 4 of the buildings in that little stretch using the dumpster instead of the roll carts that the ENT currently has, and presumably the roll carts that the 2 under construction buildings would have. And they liked that idea. They said they would have no problem with it. So placing this dumpster would essentially eliminate the need for 8 to 10 roll carts out there. That's really all I've got. If there's any questions, I did, because this was such a not necessarily controversial, but contentious approval originally, I did reach out to the 2 property owners that were so vocal during the original approval, just to give them a heads up that this was coming. Because as a site plan review, it wasn't a public hearing, so it didn't have adjacent property owner notifications. So I just wanted to be transparent with them. And the property owner to the rear, he was good with it. He was excited about having the trash not blowing around and having the dumpster be farther away from his driveway.
The 3 sides, can you point out which sides are going to be the 3 sides?
I believe, from what the Vidant representatives told me, I believe it was going to be the west, north, and east sides. I think the truck was going to come in and pick up from the side here.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Lynn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I appreciate the fact that you went across the street and asked the question. It would be good if the other buildings can use that. That seems like maybe a long walk, but we'll see how that goes. I will say that the building that is not shaded, the one in the middle there, that building right there is going to be Chesapeake operating that building. So I don't know how that's going to, of course, they're all together, but I don't know how that's going to work out. They probably haven't been contacted on whether or not to use a dumpster. So do you have any finalized plans on that particular building yet?
We don't have any like as-built surveys or anything like that. Nothing on that yet. Before they get their final inspection, we'll have that.
Okay. Well, they look like they're a little ways from that. All right. Anybody got?
I think they're aware. Chesapeake is aware.
Okay. Anybody?
No, sir.
No? All right. Then we need, we're ready for some sort of a motion, folks.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
I move to grant approval of the site plan amendment to replace the existing trash roll cans with a screen dumpster as shown on the site plan.
A second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, thank you, Rob. And thanks for going that extra mile, too. All right, public hearing on the budget. Andy's up. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Thanks, Lynn.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening, we will
present the final 2019-2020 budget for the town of Kitty Hawk. As you recall, we've had several meetings on this. The town council has back in February. We went over our capital improvements, some of the major projects the town is looking to accomplish in the next 5 years. And then in April, we went over some of the details of the budget document itself during our budget work session. And so here we are tonight to approve or to have a public hearing on this budget. So what I'll do is I'll keep it brief, being that we've seen this several times now. I'm kind of just going to go over the highlights of the budget itself. So what you have before you is the 19 and year 2020 budget. You'll see my two kids have made it to the budget document this year. On the way to school, my little boy said, "Libby, we're going to be famous." And I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't know about that. Anyway, so the theme for this year is going to forward together. And every year we sort of had a theme for our budgets. The budget maintains an existing tax rate of 34 cents per $100 of property valuation. There was a strong emphasis on budgeting for future capital purchases and projects. We put a strong emphasis in this category every year. Every year we put away quite a bit of yearly operating revenues, and we dedicate those to future projects, which helps reduce any type of needed debt service in the future, keeps the town basically debt-free. The budget maintains a positive and rewarding work environment for our employees, and the budget continues to focus on fiscal responsibility. The town, if you see our audits every year, we've got a pretty solid fund balance. We've got a good cushion, and our taxes are being maintained at the existing millage rate. So overall, it's a good budget. The total revenues for the budget are about $10,152,000. The total expenditures for the budget are the same. The budget has to balance, so revenues have to equal expenditures. Once again, the tax rate's 34 cents. There's no change. There's a 4-cent beach nourishment dedication out of this 34 cents. And then also the budget continues to maintain the 12-cent municipal service tax, which is in our municipal service tax district, which is earmarked for beach nourishment. Some of the highlights on the revenue side of the budget. The revenues tend to remain relatively stable. There was a 4.6% increase in revenues as compared to the current fiscal year budget that we're in, 18-19, this current year's budget. There was no fund balance needed to balance the budget, so basically any revenues that are being brought in the year are being expended. There's not any type of reserve that we need to bring into the budget to balance the budget. Some of the highlighted changes on the revenue side, we've increased occupancy tax projections by about $130,000. One of the reasons being is we've sort of projected conservatively our revenue side of the budget since I've been the manager, and we're slowly starting to fine-tune some of these revenue projections. So this kind of gets us a little closer to what we've actually collected over the past 3 years. And we've also transferring in from our capital reserve $145,000 for a couple projects that we've been saving for, that we'll be making those purchases in this upcoming fiscal year. And there has been an increase in investment revenues. I think this year we've collected, I want to say closer to, I believe, $80,000 or $90,000 in interest on some of our investments. So we're starting to see some increases there. We've switched some funds around to, not that they're more risky funds, but we met with our fiscal advisor with the League of Cities, and they've advised us that we could be making a little more interest, and we made that move last year. So we're seeing some increase in our investment revenues. And then we have the beach nourishment contribution that we receive monies from Dare County each year to help offset the cost of the beach nourishment project, and this year is $1.1 million. Some of the expenditures, kind of an overview of the whole expenditures for the town. The majority of the day-to-day expenses for all of our departments remains the same. So these are just some of the expenses that people are interested in. There is a 1-step increase within our current pay plan, which equivalent to about a 2% increase for our employees. There was a 5% health insurance increase premium, which is relatively low. So we're doing good on our claims for our employees, and so that's helping us out with our insurance premium.
There's no new positions that were funded in the budget. There is an increase in employer retirement contribution for our state retirement plans. That goes for both general employees and police and fire. So I believe that represented about a $50,000 total increase in expenses for our retirement contribution that the town's required to pay the state. There's several positions, I believe three to four positions that we're looking to try to correct some compression issues within our existing pay plan. We hope that once this budget's approved, that moving forward, we'll be able to make the hires within the necessary steps in order to hopefully eliminate and not have any more compression moving forward. There are no guarantees, but this kind of helps us, since we moved to this step plan, it's going to help us kind of correct some of those issues that we have within our existing pay plan. The day-to-day operating expenditures, as I said before, throughout each department, supplies and things of that nature that we need to operate on a day-to-day basis remain neutral. Some of the larger capital purchases you see here, I won't go over any of these purchases, but I'll give everybody a chance to look at the list of capital purchases that we intend to purchase in this upcoming fiscal year. Some of the major ones, as you'll see here, is of course we are going to purchase 3 patrol vehicles. We kind of purchase some every year to keep that rotation, keep our police vehicles operational, and a street resurfacing project of $142,000. And then we've got some other things. Another one that we added with the bathhouse repairs. That building's in need of repairs. The architect has started to kind of give us some plans on and some sketches on some of the repairs that will need to be made. And I'll have that presented to you probably in June or July. So we've got a good list of projects there for capital. And then, like I said before, we try to put monies aside every year to purchase future capital. So these aren't projects that we're going to be doing in this year, but we'll be setting aside money from the operating revenues to do those projects moving forward. As you'll see, the largest expenditure money we're setting aside is funding for a future police station in the amount of $200,000. So we should have some information on that as well from the architect, and that will be presented in the next upcoming meetings as well, as far as the schematics. And we hired the architect to tell us whether or not the police station would work up on US 158. So in summary, there's no tax rate increase. We feel the budget maintains an exceptional expected level of service. There's a strong emphasis on future planning, and it continues to maintain the $3.5 million emergency reserve. In addition, the budget maintains the unrestricted fund balances at the 18-19 levels. So financially, we'll be identical to how we are today if things work out as expected. That's the budget presentation that I have. I'd like to thank the employees, the finance director, the council, everybody that's been involved in the budget process. It's something that we start in January and February, and so we've come a long way, and we feel like this is a good budget for the town and for the residents, and I appreciate everybody's hard work. Thank you.
And I echo that thank you to everybody. I do want to make one clarification to people who might see this. The only reason we're considering a new police station is the one we have has flooded twice, Irene and Michael. It's in an area that's subject to flooding. It's a little bit smaller than perhaps we need in today's world, where everybody needs police year-round and 24/7. But the main reason we're even looking at this is because of flooding. And if the station is flooding at a time we need the police doing other things to protect citizens, that's not good. So that's why we changed direction on that. I just wanted to make that clear to people. We're not building something just because we want to build it. There is a reason behind it, okay? All right, it's a public hearing. Council, you have anything for?
No, sir.
No, sir, I don't.
All right. Anybody out there want to speak at this public hearing to the budget? Anyone? Let the record show no one came forward. I move to go back into regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Council, what do you want to do? You want to pass the budget?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll make a motion that we, to approve, approve the budget as presented.
I'll second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, we got a budget. Go spend the money. All right, now we have some new business, appointments to town boards, and you have kind of a cheat sheet, but there is one change I want you to make note of. David Morton on the Board of Adjustment does not want to continue. So I just learned this on Friday, about midday, I guess. So I asked Lynn if we could leave that open for the time being until I can get a chance to talk to the other people on that board, find out who's willing to do what, and then it'll come back to us. In the meantime, we have a second, so, and we don't have many times when that's done. So with that in mind, Planning Board, let's start with the Planning Board. Do I hear a motion to reappoint some people to the Planning Board?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to reappoint Jim Garrity and Chuck Heath as the regular members on the planning board with the term of office to expire June 30th, 2021.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Next.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to reappoint Matt Spencer as an alternate on the planning board with a term of office to expire June 30th, 2021.
Second.
All right. Any further nominations? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to reappoint John Richardson as chairman of the planning board and Brian Parker as vice chairman for a one-year term.
Second.
All right. Any further nominations? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right. Board of Adjustment, leave out Mr. Morton, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to reappoint Charlotte Walker as a regular member of the Board of Adjustment with a term of office to expire June 30th, 2022.
Does that have a second?
Second.
Any further nominations? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Next.
I make a motion to reappoint Natalie Smith as an alternate on the Board of Adjustments with a term of office expiring June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any further nominations? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Again, none. Chair and vice chair serve for 1 year until a successor is named, so we'll retain everybody we have with the exception of David Morton. And there's nothing on the Recreation Committee.
Man,
Yes, sir.
are we going to update the left-hand side of that page when we do the right-hand side? The elected officials needs to be updated, the left side of that page.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even look at it. I knew who was there. Okay. Did that. Town manager, you have anything else for us?
No, sir.
Casey?
None for me, Mayor.
Okay. You got more out today than normal.
I have to dress so I can figure out what to send him a bill.
I appreciate you. All right. Reports, comments from town council. I have a couple of things, so I'll wait until the end. Tina, you have anything for us?
No, sir.
Jeff?
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody for, everybody working together to get a budget that I think is going to work really well for our town, as well as keeping our tax rate the same for our residents. And I just want to thank everybody for all your hard work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice budget, everybody. Thank you very much. That's all.
Same thing, great work on the budget. Summer is here. Thank all the departments, all nighttime staff of what you do. It's going to be a long summer. Thank you.
Hopefully not hot all summer.
Hopefully not hot also.
All right, two comments. First, if you've looked at the Voice, you probably realize that Southern Shores, Mr. Connors, Councilman Connors, is looking at putting together some sort of committee to get a library annex of some sort up in this part of the beach. And he's asking at least all of the municipal members to support that with somebody to represent, in this case, the town of Kitty Hawk. So my question is, does anybody want to volunteer for that? Okay, you're all in the military, so you know better. I figured that was the way, and all of y'all have collateral duties. At the moment, I don't have one, so I will take that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then the other thing I have is this, this award was given to the town of Kitty Hawk and Kill Devil Hills and Duck for the beach nourishment project. And basically what it represents is the fact that a beach nourishment project was put together. No federal, no state money was put into it. 3 towns and the county all got together and did it in a cohesive manner. And the fact that municipal governments could get together and do something positive without fussing and fighting, I think is why we probably got the award. So we'll have this posted, and it's well-deserved. And I don't know if any of you have really taken time to ride up and down our beach, but boy, the property has improved tremendously.
Yes.
A lot of the old places that were being left to rot, waiting for the sea to take them so they could claim their insurance, they fixed them up, re-sided them, re-shingled. New places are being built.
We've noticed
It's
that.
good. It's really made a difference. So I can't imagine not continuing the process, but we'll see how the folks feel when it comes time to ask that question. All right. That's all I have. Public comment. Anybody? Let the record show no one came forward. I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks.
Do you know who